Hey, Shawna, have you ever had to turn lemons into lemonade? Well, our guest today certainly had to. At one point, she needed to spend a week in a psych ward. She's been very vulnerable about sharing the circumstance of that. And now she's gone on to help women lead productive and fearless lives. Let's dive in. Before we do that, let's give a shout out to our listener, Amy Phillips. Thanks for your support, Amy. Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Summer, we're so happy to have you on the podcast. We're talking something a little bit different today because you have a lot of experience with postpartum and postpartum depression. Would you be willing to share a little bit about that for us?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here with Alli and Shawna. It's quite the honor. And yes, I believe that I've experienced pain in my life to kind of help that voice for other women who are suffering in silence. So when I had my first daughter, I'd been married for 12 years, so a little bit, late into the mothering world. My mom had passed away several years before. We're going on 18 years here of me being a mom without a mom, and my oldest is now 12. And it was really multifactorial that when I went into labor, all of the hormones, just like I started crying in labor and I never stopped. So I was just overwhelmed with the emotion. And my whole postpartum experience, there was a lot of factors, Shawna, that I'm sure you'd be like, I can't believe people let you do this, but I really did not have any support. I was doing all the cleaning, the cooking, getting the baby, trying to breastfeed, and that was not successful. That's a whole nother thing in itself, the things that we did. And by 5 weeks, I ended up in the psychiatric unit. I was so sleep deprived. I had lost all my baby weight. That was just way too fast. I couldn't sleep at all. I was just a mess. So that's pretty much where my rock bottom moment started postpartum.
Wow. Yeah, not a stellar start to motherhood.
Right. And, people always looked at me, they're like, oh, you're this pro athlete, you're a successful business owner, you've coached all these other people, you're the oldest of 6 kids, you do everything, right? Like you're that rock, you're that strong person. And so, I will share this with a lot of people because I'll say, oh, well, can you ever amount to anything after spending a week in a psychiatric unit? Because I'll be honest, I've had some people say like, well, why don't you just say you had to go in the hospital? And I'm like, no, it is what it is. Like, I want people to feel that if they need help, then that's what they go and need to do. And luckily, my husband was very supportive and just said enough is enough, because we had tried, to kind of for several days, we were really in a crisis mode before we went to the hospital. And my husband was like, enough is enough. You need to go to the hospital. Well, I actually stayed an entire week. They recognized I needed to be there. And obviously the story unfolds many different ways for me personally and even professionally because of that moment. And then even things that I have learned now, just even in the past year, about what also could have impacted that whole situation.
And Summer, where were you at in life when you got pregnant? Kind of tell us like what was going on when you got pregnant, you had the baby. Where were you like business-wise, career-wise, just life-wise?
Sure. So I was 35. So, they consider you geriatric, right? Motherhood. So I was 35. I had a successful brick and mortar business, 6,000 square foot fitness studio. I'd been a pro athlete. I had coached, actually a little bit after I had the baby, I ended up a 3-time Olympia champion. So I'd been very successful coaching others, running my business. So that's where I was. And obviously I was a very driven person. People always thought I had it all together, which I did, but this experience opened some wounds, some deeper trauma that was actually buried, right? It was like that trigger moment. And like I said, my mom having passed away was one of them. And so it had been, about 6 years that, I didn't have my mom there for this experience as well.
So you went into the hospital, and I really appreciate that you said, no, I went into the psych ward, because it kind of liberates other women to feel better about their circumstance, that, hey, even the strongest of the strong fall down and ask for the support, because the strongest people are the ones that are willing and humble enough to ask for support. So a week in the psych ward, then what?
So it really opened up that, I went in this deep dive of self-development, personal development. So when I was actually at home before I went into the psychiatric unit, I remember just chanting to myself, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. I mean, when I talk about being miserable and rock bottom, and, there's other people that sometimes want to minimize, oh, well, you're a mom, you're just not supposed to have sleep, like all these things. And it's like, you have no idea what I was going through, what state I was in, to where, I couldn't even take care, like I was afraid to even hold her. So while I was in the psychiatric unit, one of the things they wanted me to do were things like crafts and arts, right? And, we look at now that those are things that part of self-care, right? And recovery, like expressing ourselves creatively, just taking some time to breathe and do things like that. So those were things that we did there. And then of course I started with counseling. And so afterwards, I, was on some medications, which I didn't need to be on long term, but that's what I needed at the time. And so that's the other thing I share with people. Listen, if you need medicine, sometimes that's what you need in order to even make the behavior changes to get where you need to be. So, I mean, I was on like 3 different medications because I needed to make sure I sleep. Going way back as early as 4th grade, 7th grade, college, like I have all these memories of some of my sleep issues, which again, this might be a whole nother podcast episode as to what I've learned now. So like my inability to sleep then when this baby was like, I could not sleep, right? So afterwards we had to hire help. We had to hire help at home so that I could sleep for one. Luckily my husband did get up with the baby at night. They're like, she cannot get up and have this interrupted sleep. And we had a nanny come and help, with laundry and care. And they also told me, Summer, you're a person that needs to get back to your regular schedule. They wanted me to get back into work and get into a regular schedule, right? So like I was not designed to be the fully immersed stay-at-home mom and do the 6 or 12 weeks. I just wasn't designed to do that. They encouraged me to get back to my normal routine. Now, since obviously we all have the fitness background, right? Owned a very successful personal training studio. Having been a pro athlete, I could not bring myself to exercise though. I mean, I was still in such a low place. And so over time though, and I hope this is really beneficial to the listeners that might be struggling, no matter where you are in life, on getting going with exercise, I was like, Summer, Sesame Street 7. Set your timer and move for 7 minutes. And that's how I got started. And then I actually developed a 10-minute fitness challenge, a 28-day program then for clients and other people who felt like, I just can't get started. I don't have the motivation, because we have this all or nothing mentality, right? So I applied my whole experience professionally. So that was one thing. The other thing was, I recognized professionally that I was sitting in my office one day, and this was even a couple of years after that, I had been training world-class champions in the physique world, right? And I even had trained other like Major League Baseball players. I was certified strength conditioning specialist, like all that good stuff there, and general population. But I had a woman in my office one day, 40 years old, crying because she had never won a sword, which was a type of trophy at a contest. And I just sat there going, this is not a real problem. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So I truly believe I was put in that position of going through hitting rock bottom to be a voice for women suffering in silence. I recognized how many other women, they just smile. We're performing, we're pretending, right? But we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, and it's often showing up on our waist too, right? Like we've been, and I even looked back at my pro fitness days, right? And I was completely honest with myself through all of this self-development work that even as a pro athlete getting on stage and winning my awards, that smile was fake half the time. I really didn't allow myself to truly enjoy. So I know, long answer here, right? But this was just like, I needed this. This was so important for my journey to go through this and delve deep into self-development and realize like I needed to heal myself really, really deep. I had some deep traumas that came out, right? And, I think a lot of us experience that, and, having a child really opened that. So I have really shifted, I guess, more as a fitness person. Like, yes, I still consider myself as a fitness expert, but more as a personal development expert, or even just, helping women perform better mentally, and to start like embracing their pain and using it as their power even to move forward in life. Because I believe most of us, especially women, have been conditioned to be sick, stuck, and hurt. And I'm just like, nope, let's go out there and let's unleash our full potential, right? And it doesn't matter what you've been through, you can use it as a stepping stone to move forward.
Wow. Yeah. Talk about the universe giving you a powerful lesson to redirect you to truly find your passion. And to be your authentic self, and using pain to as a means to find that path.
Yeah, I want to ask Summer, I want to go back. Like, what were you thinking before having your first child? Like, what in your mind was this going to be like? Because I think people go into it and they have this one idea. I don't have kids, so I can't speak to it, but can you enlighten me on kind of what that looks like before the baby comes and then life after?
Sure. So for me, honestly, one reason that we didn't have kids for a long time was twofold. I had gotten into my career as a pro, fitness athlete, and then with the fitness center, and then just kind of recognized, okay, I'm getting older. Here's the time if we want. And I'm the oldest of 6 kids, so I knew it was going to be chaotic, right? Sometimes I joke and say, well, another reason why I waited for 12 years is because I was literally a parent at 11. We had 6, at that time we had 3 kids under the age of 2. And, so okay, I know it's going to be chaotic, but I also knew, I'd be sleep deprived, and, that was going to be hard and something I always struggled with. But I had no idea that I would have those feelings of postpartum depression, and no one talks to you about that. The other thing is the whole breastfeeding topic. My mom breastfed 6 kids. So there was no doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to that I'm going to breastfeed. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I knew. Well, when I had my daughter, they literally came to me in the hospital and they're like, handed me a bottle and said, you got to bottle feed her. She's not getting breast milk. You have to bottle feed her. And I'm just like, what? Well, here, long story short, I ended up having to use a catheter with formula, have her latch. Okay. She couldn't get anything. And then after that, I would have to pump and bottle feed. And I literally did that, being the type A, right? I was a pro. You don't get to be a pro athlete by not following your orders, right? You don't get to be a successful business owner by not following the system. So I did what they told me. And that was another contributing factor why I ended up in the hospital. I never made milk. And so as a woman, I'm like, nobody ever told me this. You never told me that I might not be able to make milk. So I literally tried for 5 weeks. So that was one of the reasons why I went in. And of course, I didn't have my mom there to talk to me and support me. So I did have a second daughter. And I literally said to them, I was like, there's a lot of things you should have told me about what could have gone, right? Because they also admitted at the OBGYN office, they didn't know what to do with my postpartum depression because that's where we went first, right? So they didn't know what to do. So I tried to use that as an education to help other people. But sure, you think you're going to have a baby. If you choose to breastfeed, I'm going to breastfeed. It'd be nice if people come over and help you and they're bringing, no, yeah, half that didn't happen. Same with my whole birthing, process, even everything they taught you and the child, like none of that happened in my experience at all. So you can't really fully plan.
Yeah, I guess, motherhood is all about expecting the unexpected. And I mean, it's hard to manage those expectations, but it would have been nice if you would have had at least the heads up that, hey, it might not work as planned. And it is important that we spread this message for our listeners that potentially are going to be new mothers or maybe grandmothers, because a lot of our listeners are 40 plus. And, so just, providing education to daughters. Unfortunately, I'm sorry you didn't have your mom to be able to do that. How did you handle, is Lennon your second?
Lennox is my first daughter.
Lennox, and then
Lena.
So when you were pregnant with Lena, did you have the fear of God? Like, oh my goodness, how am I going to handle this?
Absolutely. So after having Lennox, I was like, because first of all, my actual delivery was also miserable too. Like my pregnancy was actually great. It was like from the delivery on. So my delivery was also very excruciating and not as planned either. So I was like, I can't ever do this again, right? Like everything, I'm like, I can't do this again. But I finally recognized, like, okay, I really want, her to have a sibling. And so literally it was like one time I'm pregnant that fast. And my husband and I sat down and we were like, we're going to do things differently. So we hired a nighttime nanny because we knew we had to. And then I also, and everything was part-time and had a part-time daytime nanny. And then I also did my best to set up my business, right, to run even more without me, which literally I did do that with my first daughter, right? So I tried to continue that to get me out of my business as much as possible, which again, there's a whole nother podcast episode there, right? For business owners, how to become a CEO and you're not in your business.
Yeah.
So, I got the support with Lena, just did things differently. My delivery was much easier with her and she slept better than Lennox. So like the nighttime nanny is sometimes be like, yeah, I did all your laundry. She's like, she slept, go figure. Right. And she was just a much easier baby. And then I also just say as a child, she was brought to me for a reason because she is a special girl when it comes to like her brain and what she says and even how like she cares, for me. So we just did things differently. I did try to breastfeed, but I did not put the pressure on myself. So I knew from day one, I'm like, bring the bottle. I didn't make breast milk the first time, which I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. And I know you ladies will appreciate this. You know what they told me I needed to do? Drink more water. And I was like, I literally was still almost drinking a gallon of water during pregnancy. I'm like, you got to give me something else. So just for some reason, my body just wasn't going to produce milk, which I do want to share too. Like I went through a lot of mental failure battle that I couldn't. And I was like, if this was 100 years ago, how would I have fed my baby? I mean, I was like having these thoughts in my head that were just, awful for all of that. So anyway, with Lena, just did things differently, lowered the expectations. It was like, okay, we know what to expect now, and let's just make this the best for us.
Yeah. Just being prepared and having that second plan would have been so important. So, how would you advise women that are expecting, potential grandparents that are going to be, having grandbabies? What would your advice be, to manage expectations going into the birth of a child?
Sure. So I do want to say, just based on something you shared earlier too, right? Like I have now met a lot of women that, because I've been vulnerable with my story, that are grandmas now, that are like, I had postpartum too, but like I wasn't allowed to say, right? And I'm like, that is just terrible that women have felt, oh, like you should just go do this and do everything and it's all good, right? And so, first of all, if you are a woman that's already gone through that, like give yourself some grace. And like, I'm so glad you're still here, because unfortunately I was learned of a group of, the rate of maternal suicide was pretty high. And these are things we don't talk about, right? And, women are just supposed to do these things. This is how it is. And so if you're able to give support to a new mom, like please do. Like please do help her, whether she wants it or not. And we know a lot of new moms in particular, they do develop an anxiety and almost an OCD from the beginning, and a fear with their baby. And so sometimes, the new mom might not necessarily share how she's feeling, or she might feel it's a failure. So you need to look at those signs and see what she needs. Because again, I have a lot of people now that like either will come to me, share stories, or even husbands that will come to me because they're concerned about their wife. Will I talk to their wife, right now? Because yes, society has put certain expectations on women, and especially if you're a new mom who's also working, or same thing, gosh, I don't know how single moms do it, right? I mean, moms need help. Like they need help. We always want to say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, where's the village when the mom's having the child, and even months after that, right? So that would kind of be what I would share right now.
Well, I mean, the kind of the attitude towards having a baby is all happy, 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 which is wonderful. But then there is the underbelly of like, what if I don't feel happy, happy, happy after this little cherub has arrived? And I can understand how you would be feeling like I can't admit this. I've got this healthy baby, and what kind of failure am I if I'm not like don't have a skip in my step? So I really appreciate your sharing your story. It's kind of like, postpartum is kind of like menopause, in that it's like, it's just that word that we just, Voldemort, of which we don't speak. And so bringing education and light to it is going to be so helpful for women. So thank you for sharing, your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
We learn from other people's experiences, and you just mentioned menopause, and I was like, wow, why do all these things happen to me? And I think I might have mentioned to you 2 years ago, I had to have an emergent hysterectomy, ovaries, everything gone, put into surgical menopause. And so many people just wanted to be like, discount it. Like, oh, and it's like, this is another life-changing thing for women, especially like in my case, where I was like, I don't know, do I have cancer? Like, what's going to happen? Like all these things that happen, and then being put into surgical menopause, because keeping your ovaries and them taking your ovaries is two totally different things when it comes to hysterectomy. So again, we could have 10 different podcast episodes, and I just say, I'm not going to use the pain, the situations that I've put in vain. I'm going to share them with you to try to empower you so that you can take these experiences and then also speak up for yourself, right? And go out there and get the help that you need, or not feel bad because you had to go through these experiences, because that was another one that I used to launch me into another season of my life. So when you hit some of those valleys in your life, it is actually a launch pad into something bigger and better moving forward.
It's a really good attitude, because you were not a failure in that, you had postpartum depression. You were not a failure that you needed to have a radical hysterectomy. In some ways, this was the universe showing you a way of empowering other women. So I really like the attitude of being a launch pad of moving into something bigger and better. And I think it's that attitude that kind of helps you move forward as well.
Absolutely, right? Our story is either our platform or our prison.
Yeah. And Summer, I just want to say, like, so many of us take for granted that we still do have our moms. And, you know, what, I don't know if you feel comfortable speaking to that, like, when your mom passed or any of that, but that's also something other people are going through. And so, is there anything that you can share with us about that part of your journey?
Absolutely. And so I want to share too that that was something that I felt I also wasn't allowed to express, like, especially to someone who didn't get it, right? They didn't understand the impact. Well, that was really validated for me a couple years ago when I met someone. Her name's Melissa, and she started thriving as a mom without a mom. And I was like, oh, there's this whole network of women out here now that are moms without a mom, right? So it really validated all the things I needed. And so, at the time when my mom was a teacher, okay, she was still teaching full time, 6 kids. I was, married out of the house, but we had, 2 out of the house, 2 in college, 2 in high school, right? Lots of different seasons of life. And my dad came from like that traditionalist generation, and my parents always want to be private. We weren't allowed to talk about it. No one was allowed to know that she was sick. Okay. So my brothers, my one brother in particular, it really impacted him hard because having to keep this in, right? So literally when my mom's obituary hit, there were people going, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, we had to keep that in. And it was kind of at that moment that I decided I'm not going to be silent anymore. I'm not going to fall into these, you got to be private family things anymore. I'm like, this isn't stuff that you keep to yourself. Like, you need people to help you. And so, so yeah, like going through that, it was just like, oh my gosh. And luckily we kind of have a good story around when she actually passed, because we were all there, and it was like she knew. And if it's okay for me to just share, my mom, full-time teacher, the 6 kids, 2 weeks from her, she was in hospice, 2 weeks before she died, a local woman who had several kids, I want to say it was like 9 kids, she had passed away. And all my mom could do was think about who's going to take care of her kids. Like, she was so worried about that family and their kids because they were younger kids. And so, when she passed away, she wanted all the money to go to that family. And so, same thing, I look at it as like those lessons have kind of helped me, as painful as they are, to move forward. But not having your mom, like, we can't discount that. Moms are a big part of our lives. Now, I do want to say, obviously, there's women out there who their moms might be living, but maybe they don't even have a relationship. And that is a trauma in itself too, so like my friend Melissa, who does the Moms Without a Mom, she addresses all that, right? But yeah, moms like have a big impact. And I've had some people say some pretty insensitive things, right? Or same thing, take for granted the relationship, the help, right, they have, because luckily my mom was there when I got married, but she never saw me open, my big business, my brick and mortar. She never saw, the birth of my kids. She's missed out on all kinds of events and family things that we wish she was there. And now, even forward for my daughters, they don't know what it's like to have a loving grandma. And that's actually, I feel, a big missing piece in their development. But I also know I would not be doing what I do today had my mom not passed away. Because I then had started a Fearless Academy for women while I still had the fitness center. And like I said, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore with athletes. And it just really shifted me into another way to impact women. So I started, so I say that Fearless Academy for women was created partially because of the messages my mom left, the unspoken messages that my mom left me. And I couldn't have understood those until she passed away. and when I became a mom too.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, your mom was a very powerful woman and very powerful in your life for the time that she was with you and even beyond, because you've been unpacking those lessons and learning from her in retrospect. And I mean, sad as it is that she hasn't been, being able to see the birth of your kids, help you with that, or um, you know, sharing the joy of all that is you now. She has been by your side. So that is a really powerful message, that even for those of us that have lost our moms, or those women that don't have a close relationship with their moms do the best they can with what they have. So, for the women that, unfortunately, I didn't have like a wonderful relationship with my mom. We did our best, but I know that she did her best with what she had. And motherhood is just like wow, such a topic.
Yes. And so in my Fearless Academy for Women, I have a lot of clients that are over 45, over 55, same thing, that they're trying to reframe some of those relationships, some of those things that happened to us. And, it's where we have to say, you know what? They didn't know any better, right? If somebody they didn't know any better, but we know better now. So how can we do better? And so in my case, as an entrepreneur, I decided, I'm a workhorse, and I know like you ladies are too, right? But I decided that I want to take this time with my kids, because as terrible as it sounds, I'm like, if I died when my mom did, I only have 7 years left, and that's it. And so like I just sold my brick and mortar fitness business, multifactorial again, but partially because I wanted to be able to focus on my children right now. I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader, and they need me, and I don't want to be distracted. And so entrepreneurially, I decided I want to find a different way to use my talents and feel I can be more present with my children, because I'm like, well, hopefully I can, after 55, if I need, when they go to college, if I need to go back into the workforce differently, I can. Because in some respects, I feel like I didn't really have, that maternity leave because, so many things were happening, and because I'm growing my business, right? And so I'm doing a lot of things differently or non-conventionally. And, same thing, like ladies, there is no rule book on what you have to do in your career, how and when, how you mother, when you take the pauses, right? Like I want to be the mom. Like I traded in, my car. I got the big SUV, color ruby red. I want to take the kids places, right? Like that's what I choose to do now. So I had to shift, right? My thoughts, for one, that this is what I want to do. I want to be a mom and still be a successful business owner, right? Because sometimes when you are a driven woman, it is hard to step over into some of those mom roles. So anyway, I'm so glad that that I've done that, because like my daughter in 6th grade, like that's a challenging time in her life. And I want to be able to support her. I want things to be a little bit different if possible for my children. Not that I had a bad childhood, but when you were the oldest of 6 kids, you were kind of on your own by a certain age, right?
Yeah.
So I want to develop my girls a little differently.
I think what you're saying, and I think is a powerful message, is that you're living with intention. You're not living by rote. You're not letting life happen. You're choosing how you want life to be, and that you're giving permission to all our listeners that there is not one size fits all. You don't have to be a career woman. You don't have to be a stay-at-home mom. You can be any combination or permutation of all that. You have to choose what's right for you, but choose it rather than letting it choose you, because you're going to be happier with your choices. And, it is a little bit morbid to think, hey, I might not last longer than 7 years, but you are going to live your best life with that thought in mind. When people think they have all this time, that's when we get in trouble and we just kind of get into autopilot. So kudos to you. And I love the power of this message that we need to just be more intentional and make hard choices. It wouldn't have been easy for you to be like, hey, I'm closing a successful business or selling a successful business, right? Like those are hard choices that you had to make. You maybe had to kind of take a step back financially to say, hey, we're going to regroup here, but we have a bigger purpose in mind.
Yes, thank you. And so to sum up all what you said, my Fearless Academy for Women, become a fearless decision maker and the CEO of your life. Yeah. And all the women that I work with, that's what it's about, right? We're afraid to make certain decisions, either because we have perfectionistic tendencies or we procrastinate, like you said, right? We're tripped up in our mind, or we don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. We're people pleasers and we're never, so I try to empower women that, no, you become the fearless decision maker. What do you want? And like you said, our lives should not be one size fits all. And that's why I translated it to like, just like in business, right? You're the CEO, you make the decisions. Well, we need to be the CEO of our own lives. And I also recognized in order to be a better CEO of my business, I needed to be a better CEO of my own life, right? So sometimes we're chasing things in our life that are actually a Band-Aid for trying to fulfill a deeper purpose and a deeper fulfillment, because I get women who come to me all the time thinking they need to change careers, but we dig deep and it's really not even about the career at all, right? And so thank you for saying that, Shawna, because you're right. Like, we need to give ourselves permission to be successful, right? Like, give yourself permission. You can, like, I have that thought process. You can do whatever you want, right? Now, as long as you're willing to put the work to it, right? And then also as women, multifaceted women, right? We're daughters, we're mothers, we're sisters, we're, doing all these things. We can do it all, but we can't do it all at the same time. So we have to decide what's right for us now. And too many of us, like you said, are living, well, when or if or in the future, and that never happens. And it's like, those are just wishes. Those aren't plans, right? And so, I often say, stop chasing goals and start creating your lifestyle now. So yes, that's how I choose to live, that every day, is a great day, and I'm not going to keep putting things up. And I don't think I would have had that mentality had I not been through the things I've been in my life or lost my mom.
Some of the ladies that work with you, I mean, wow, they're so lucky to have someone who's just, has the humbleness and the courage and the strength that you have. And what is it for you that you just really love about what you're doing now, and what experiences do you have with women that you're working with that really light you up or fill your cup on this new path that you're on?
So I honestly feel like I was just born to be a coach and a teacher. Like, since I was like 2 years old, right? Like, I'm told that at preschool, I would help the teacher, right? Like, I just like other people to be achieving their personal best. Like, really, like, someone told you can't do that. Well, guess what? Let's figure out how to do it. Like, I get so much joy from seeing other people exceed their own expectations. And so the women that I work with, a lot of them are professional women, successful women, but deep down, like, they feel a little stuck, right? Either they're like, I want more, but I feel bad because I want more. And it's like, well, no, it's okay. You just haven't been in the right environment. But I mean, I've helped women, decide that they actually like their career. They just needed to be more assertive and use their voice in their career, right, more effectively. And then they get raises and promotions in the current career. I've had other women that have completely, left corporate America and gone into entrepreneurship. Because again, these are typically all driven women. But really, at the end of the day, what they all say is the confidence they gain. And like I believe we said earlier, and I love that, like living authentically into who we are instead of like editing who we are. And so in the professional world, I see a lot of women, and I did it for a long time too, like we shrink, we try to minimize, right? Like, oh, because I can't tell you how many times I've been told, you're too this, you're too driven, you're too bold. And it's like, what do you mean? We're changing lives. People are doing great things. And so I believe that empowered women and empowered girls become fearless leaders who change the world. And isn't that why we're here, is to make an impact on the world? Like everyone says, oh, I want to make the world a better place. Well, how are we doing that? So anyway, I get so much joy when a woman comes and tells me something. Like I got a message the other day as simple as, she's like, I have so much clarity now, and that's not like, as tangible or like as measurable as saying you just lost 20 pounds. But I know when she tells me that she has clarity, how much weight that just lifted and how much that fills her heart to live with more purpose, more intention.
And then that is the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one empowered woman, all her friends and family, are benefiting from that. And so that is so empowering to know that you've helped this one woman, but all the people in that woman's lives are getting an upgrade because she's going to pay that forward and help, other people. So that's got to be empowering for you.
Absolutely. That's how we're making a difference in the world, right?
If you had a wish for our listeners today, what would it be?
It honestly and truly would be that you just believe in yourself. Just belief, because your belief systems, that's all honestly that matters. That's how you're going to live your life. So I just want you to believe in yourself. That's my big wish for you.
Alli?
My wish for our listeners would be that we live a really long time, but live like where we might not live a really long time.
Living with intention. And I like your idea, Summer, about having belief. And I think sometimes when we don't feel like we have the belief in ourselves, we need to support ourselves with others that will believe for us until we are at a place where we can believe. And like your postpartum story is a story of, you maybe didn't have belief in yourself at that time, but you found the support, you sought it out, surrounded yourself with the people that could believe for you until you could believe for yourself. And then you've gone on to, live successfully and help others. So my wish for others is, if you don't have that belief in yourself, find the support you need.
Absolutely. And Shawna, as I know, and Alli, we all this is why we believe in coaching and mentorship, right? I mean, and having the right support systems. I have had some sort of coach, whether in fitness, business, right? Like, and get a counselor. I even kind of adopted a woman into my family to kind of be that, older aunt, find those people, build your inner circle, and get that personal and professional support that you need too.
Yeah, because it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength for someone to reach out and get support. Because like you're not in the psych ward anymore. You got that support and then you were able to move on. But had you not got that support, it would have been, you might have been Groundhog Day of replaying and trying to figure out those lessons that you needed to figure out at the time. You gave yourself the time to figure it out, get the support, and then you were able to move on. So thank you so much for your time, Summer, and for your vulnerability. Our women are really just going to love this episode.
Well, thank you for allowing me to share, because like I said, we learn from other people's experiences, and we need to know that while our stories might be very different, like we're not alone, that there's other people out there that can relate to you too. You just haven't found some of them yet, maybe.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.